Last month, the power went out again. It wasn't just for an hour or two, it lasted almost the entire day. I was sitting in my garage, phone battery dropping fast, no lights, no Wi-Fi, and the fridge was already starting to worry me. I kept thinking, there has to be a better way than just waiting for the power company to fix things. That's when I looked at the corner of my garage. There were old batteries sitting there from old laptops, a broken e-bike, and even an old UPS unit. I had been meaning to recycle them for months, but every time I thought about using them, one big question stopped me. Is it actually safe? Because I've seen those videos. I've read those stories. Stories about lithium batteries catching fire because of one small mistake in how they were connected. Images of swollen cells, black smoke, and consequences no one wants to deal with. And I didn't want to become one of those stories. Especially when losing power was already bad enough. I didn't want to turn it into something much worse just because I tried to save a little money. At the same time, I also knew exactly how expensive the proper solutions are. A real Tesla Powerwall, fully installed, can easily go over $10,000. Even smaller home battery systems from other brands still cost several thousand. For most people, that number isn't just high, it's almost impossible to reach. So I asked myself a completely different question. What if the old batteries sitting in the corner of my garage, the ones I was planning to throw away, could actually become something useful? Not some kind of free electricity forever system. Just something simple. Something that could keep the lights on and the router running when the grid goes down. And most importantly, something I could build safely. Was that even possible? That's what this project became. I didn't want to rush into it. I didn't want to watch a few videos and start connecting wires without thinking. I wanted to do it the right way. That meant learning how to properly test old batteries, understanding what actually makes them dangerous, and building everything with safety as the #1 priority, not speed, and not saving a few extra dollars. Over the next few weeks, I did exactly that. I tested every single battery module. I learned what to look for, what to avoid, and how to build a system that I could actually trust. And when the power went out again a few weeks later, I finally got to see if all that work was worth it. In this video, I'm going to show you the entire process, the good, the bad, and the parts that almost went wrong. I'll show you exactly how I tested the old batteries, how I built the Powerwall in my garage, and most importantly, what happened when I actually had to use it during a real blackout. If you've ever thought about building something like this, but were held back by safety concerns, or if you're tired of expensive backup power options, then stick around, because I'm going to show you how I did it step by step, and as safely as possible. Let's get into it. Before I connected even a single wire, I spent almost 2 full days just testing batteries. And I'm not talking about a quick voltage check with a multimeter. I mean really testing them the way you should when you're dealing with old lithium batteries that have already lived one life. Because here's the truth, not every old battery is worth saving. Some of them are damaged, some are unstable, and if you skip the testing process, you're basically gambling with fire. I started by collecting batteries from a few different places. Facebook Marketplace, local e-waste recycling centers, and even a couple of old laptops I had lying around. I wasn't picky at first, I just wanted to see what I could find for cheap. But I quickly realized that cheap doesn't mean safe. So I made a rule for myself. If a battery doesn't pass every single test, it goes straight into the discard pile. No exceptions. Here's exactly what I did. First, I checked the physical condition. I looked for any signs of swelling, leaking, or damage to the outer casing. If a battery looked even slightly puffy, I didn't touch it. That's one of the biggest red flags with old lithium cells. Next, I measured the voltage on every single module. Most of the good ones were sitting around 3.6 to 3.8 volts per cell. Anything significantly lower or higher went through extra checks. But voltage alone isn't enough. That's where a lot of people make a mistake. I also measured the internal resistance of each cell using a proper battery tester. High internal resistance usually means the battery has aged badly or has internal damage even if the voltage looks okay. Those batteries can overheat easily when you start charging and discharging them. I also did a simple temperature check. I charged a few modules slowly while monitoring how hot they got. If any cell started getting unusually warm, I removed it from the build. Heat is one of the warning signs you really don't want to ignore. One thing that surprised me was how many batteries looked fine on the outside but failed the internal resistance test. I probably rejected almost 30% of the batteries I collected. At first, I felt bad throwing them away. But then I reminded myself I'd rather lose a few batteries now than risk a fire later. After the basic tests, I also checked for balance between cells in the same module. If one cell was way out of balance with the others, that module became a no-go for me. Now, even after all that testing, there was still one more very important thing I needed to add: a battery management system, or BMS for short. If you're new to battery builds, think of a BMS as the brain of the entire system. Its job is to constantly watch over every cell and protect them from dangerous situations. It prevents overcharging, over-discharging, overcurrent, and short circuits. It also helps balance the cells so they all stay at similar voltage levels. With old batteries especially, this is extremely important. Because these cells have already been used before, they're often uneven from the start. Without a BMS, one weak cell can drag down the whole pack or even become a safety risk. I chose a simple 100A BMS with Bluetooth monitoring. It wasn't the most expensive one, but it had the features I needed: low voltage protection, overcharge protection, and the ability to check everything from my phone. Being able to see the voltage and temperature of the pack in real time gave me a lot more peace of mind. I know some people try to build without a BMS to save money. I don't recommend it, especially when you're using recycled batteries. The cost of a decent BMS is usually between $30 to $80, depending on the size. Compared to the risk of damaging your batteries or, worse, having a safety issue, it's honestly one of the best investments you can make in a project like this. I also made sure to work in a well-ventilated area and kept a fire extinguisher nearby the whole time, not because I expected something to go wrong, but because I wanted to be prepared just in case. Testing took time. It was boring at some points, but it was also the most important part of this entire project. Because once I was confident that every battery I was keeping had passed all the checks and I had a proper BMS protecting the whole system, I finally felt ready to start building. Not before. If you're planning to do something similar, please don't skip the testing phase or the BMS. They might feel like extra steps, but they're the steps that keep everything safe. In the next part, I'll show you how I took these tested batteries and actually turned them into a power wall in my garage, including the mistakes I made along the way and how I fixed them. Once I was sure every battery had passed the tests and I had a proper BMS in place, it was finally time to start building. I decided to mount everything on the wall in my garage instead of leaving it on the floor. I wanted it to look clean and organized, almost like a real power wall. I started by building a simple wooden frame. I used leftover plywood for the back panel and 2x4s for the structure. I measured and cut everything to size, so the frame would be about 120 centimeters tall and 80 centimeters wide, big enough to hold all the battery modules with some space between them for airflow. I screwed the frame together and then mounted it securely to the wall studs using heavy-duty screws and wall anchors. I made sure it was level and could support the weight, because a fully loaded battery pack is surprisingly heavy. After the frame was up, I started laying out the battery modules. I arranged them in 2 rows, leaving about 2-3 centimeters of space between each module so air could circulate. This was important because even good batteries can generate some heat when charging and discharging. Now came the wiring, and this is where I made my first real mistake. I started connecting the batteries in a 4S2P configuration without properly planning the wire routing. I used 10 AWG wire because it could handle the current I expected. I connected 4 modules in series to get 12 volts, then paralleled another set of 4, but I didn't think about how the wires would run across the frame. Very quickly, the wiring started to look messy and crossed over itself in several places. At one point, I even had a positive wire running too close to a negative terminal. It wasn't touching, but it was close enough that I felt uncomfortable. I stopped everything, took photos, and realized I needed to redo the entire wiring layout. So, I took it all apart again. This time, I planned the wire paths more carefully. I decided to run all the positive wires on the left side and all the negative wires on the right side. I used cable ties and adhesive mounts to keep everything neat and away from sharp edges. I also added extra insulation on any wires that had to cross each other. It took me almost 2 extra hours, but the result was much cleaner and safer. After the batteries were properly wired, I installed the BMS. I mounted it on the right side of the frame where I could easily see the status lights. I connected the thick battery cables to the BMS first, then connected the smaller wires for the balance leads. One thing I was careful about was making sure the balance wires were connected in the correct order from the most negative cell to the most positive. Getting this wrong can damage the BMS. Next, I added a small digital display that shows voltage, current, and wattage in real time. I mounted it at eye level so I could check the system status without needing to pull out my phone. I also added 4 USB ports and 2 12V cigarette lighter sockets on a small panel at the bottom of the frame. This gave me easy access to power small devices directly from the power wall. Another small mistake I made was not labeling the wires clearly at the beginning. After I finished the first wiring attempt and had to redo it, I got confused about which wire went where. From that point on, I started using colored electrical tape and wrote labels on everything. It sounds simple, but it saved me a lot of time and frustration later. By the time I finished, the power wall looked much better than I expected. All the wires were neatly routed, the BMS was securely mounted, and the output ports were easy to reach. I stood back and looked at it for a while. It wasn't a commercial product, but it was something I built myself safely from batteries that were almost thrown away. I let the system sit and balance overnight before I was ready to do any serious testing. I wanted to make sure there were no hot spots and that the voltage stayed stable across all the cells. At this point, I felt pretty confident. But the real test was still coming, because building it was one thing, seeing if it would actually work when the power went out was another. After I finished building the power wall and let it balance overnight, I didn't immediately wait for a real blackout to test it. Instead, I decided to do a controlled test first. I wanted to make sure everything was truly stable before trusting it with a real power outage. I connected a few devices with known power consumption: 210-watt LED lamps, a Wi-Fi router, around 8 watts, a laptop charger, around 45 watts when charging, and a small USB fan. In total, the load was about 75-80 watts. I ran this test for 6 hours straight, while closely monitoring the voltage, temperature, and BMS behavior through the app. The voltage dropped slowly and steadily from 7V to about 3V after 6 hours. The battery stayed cool the entire time with no hot spots. The BMS didn't trigger any warnings, and cell balance remained good. This gave me real confidence that the system was working safely. Only after passing this controlled test did I feel ready to use the power wall during a real blackout. A few days later, it happened. The power went out in the evening and stayed off for almost 14 hours. When I checked the power wall, the voltage was stable at 6V with no warnings from the BMS. I connected the same devices I had tested earlier: LED lamps, router, laptop charger, and USB fan. For the first 4 hours, everything ran smoothly. The voltage dropped very slowly to around 2V. The light stayed bright and consistent. The router had no connection issues, and I could comfortably use my laptop. I checked the battery temperature multiple times. It stayed cool, almost the same as room temperature. Between hour 4 and hour 8, the voltage continued to drop gradually to about 3V. I started to feel more confident because the behavior was almost identical to the controlled test. I turned off the laptop charger to save power and kept only the lights and router running. Even with the reduced load, the system remained very stable. No flickering lights, no sudden voltage drops, and the BMS stayed quiet. From hour 8 to hour 12, the voltage slowly went down to around 0V. At this point, I was mainly using it for lighting and internet. I checked the system several times during the night. Everything continued working without any problems. The batteries were still not getting warm, which was a big relief. By hour 13, the voltage had dropped to about 8V. I decided it was time to conserve the remaining power, so I turned off the lights and kept only the router running. The router continued working smoothly for another hour before I finally shut the system down. In total, I got approximately 13 to 14 hours of usable power from the devices I actually needed. What impressed me the most was how predictable and stable the performance was. It behaved almost exactly like it did during my controlled test. Slow, steady voltage drop with no surprises. I felt a strong sense of relief and pride standing in the dark garage, knowing that those old batteries I almost threw away had just kept my basic needs running through an entire night and morning without electricity. Of course, this system isn't powerful enough to run heavy appliances like a refrigerator or air conditioner. But for lighting, communication, and charging essential devices, it performed very well. The total cost of the entire build was under $400, a tiny fraction compared to a commercial home battery system. Looking back, doing the controlled test before the real blackout was one of the best decisions I made. It gave me actual data and real confidence. Without it, I would have been much more nervous using the system when the power went out. If you're building something similar, I highly recommend doing your own controlled test first. Run it for several hours with the exact devices you plan to use. Monitor the voltage, temperature, and BMS closely. Only when everything looks stable should you trust it during a real outage. This project showed me that safely repurposing old batteries is possible, but it requires proper testing, a good BMS, and patience. Thanks for watching until the end. If this was helpful, please like and subscribe for more real DIY projects. And always remember, safety first.